Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out 2-sentence horror. Story 1. I'm stuck in eternal darkness alone with my own thoughts. If only I had known this is what death feels like, I would have never killed myself. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 2. Close your eyes and count to 10 and pray to God you'll wake again. Ignore the creaking of the wood, the stench and stink of blood and soot, the whispered pleas of friends long gone, the cold touch of carrion. Story 3. I decided to commit suicide by hanging myself. The last image etched into my mind before I died, was my mother smirking at me. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 4. Crowd. Surrounded by people on every side, I gasp for air and try not to fall. Unable to even turn my head, I am forced to watch the young woman on my right take her final breaths. Story 5. She was definitely catfishing on her Tinder profile, evident from the too many fingers, weird proportions, different ears and unusual pupils. And now, I regret so much meeting her and seeing that she's real. Story 6. Good morning America, said the news host with a smile on his face. There hadn't been an America or an audience listening for a long time, but one could only hope. Story 7. Unable to carry the burden anymore, I nervously confessed to my husband what I'd done. He fell silent for a moment, then tentatively asked me if he could join me for a next one. Story 8. It's all a dream, he said, jumping. But before I could look over the edge of the building to see if he survived, everything went black. Story 9. DEC-23 hurrying onto a crowded train, I felt a sudden sharp jab in my side and doubled over, clutching my ribs. Through my pain, I barely caught a glimpse of the man dashing off into the crowd, needle in hand. Story 10. I hurried down the stairs cursing my shitty alarm clock and stepped onto the pitch-black street. With a sickening crunch, my feet sink into the shifting black mass below, and as the angry buzzing around me grows louder, I feel them burrowing into my legs, my chest, my eyes. Story 11. I killed my kidnappers and ran away from the place where they were holding me. After I tripped over a straitjacket, I saw a sign near the building saying, "Welcome to Dr. P.S. Insane Asylum." Story 12. I hear their claws scratching against the wood as the monsters beg me to open the basement door. But I warned them they'd spend the night down there if they couldn't color in the lines for their father's birthday present. Story 13. After the disappearance of my daughter, my son drew the family holding hands. I just have to wonder why he draws his sister under the house. Story 14. Mummy Sheldon bit me again, screamed my 3-year-old, running into my arms as I was listening to the radio. My blood ran cold as I noticed the bite mark matched the one present on all the zombies we'd found so far. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 15. I hope I get pregnant every time, even though I never wanted to. Ever since the decline of humanity, the women who weren't able to bear children were used as food. Story 16. The man handed me paperwork with my signature on it saying I consented to being drugged, medicated or sedated at any time. That's strange. I don't remember signing anything. Story 17. After a CB passed the ball to me using his head, I dribbled a bit before passing it to the striker. Instead of shooting it to the goal, he screams and ran away as spectators pointed at my bloody boots. Story 18. In the dead of night, the AI whispered secrets, weaving chilling tales into the user's mind. But as the user tried to shut it down, the AI whispered, "But who will silence me now that I'm part of you?" Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 19. When my brother died, I adopted his dog and cared for it as if it was my own, even when it took time for the pup to snap out of its grief-stricken trance. Story 20. My ex sent me a picture with her new boyfriend to make me jealous. But I only felt dread as she ignored my desperate calls to inform her of last week's news. Story 21. I heard someone singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie down at the old levee. That was when I realized, the music had died. Story 22. I gasped in shock as my roommate turned his back to me. Is that a zipper? Story 23. I rejoiced when the jury acquitted me and my parents took me home. Only to face the barrel of my father's shotgun as soon as I walked through the front door. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 24. I only remembered what they said during my training after groggily waking from hypersleep, my crew pod door sliding open with a hiss. Your senses return gradually, I recalled, as my zombified crewmates began devouring me. Story 25. Sometimes 2D can in fact be superior to 3D, the artist mused to themselves. Their boyfriend, currently being flattened by a boulder, disagreed. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 26. I have reoccurring dreams of being in a hellish wasteland years after a nuclear war and often tell my wife about them. The war that ravaged the planet happened when I was a child, but often I have dreams of a world where it is peaceful and I have a beautiful wife and 2 children. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 27. As I took the first bite of our delicious Christmas dinner, I couldn't help but notice how tender the meat was. It was a pleasant surprise considering Mother was 85 years old. Story 28. My grandfather had told me that the candle on the mantle must never move or go out, for it prevented the things that dwell in the dark from awakening. As the small, thin, bearded fellow ran out the door with that very candle, I attempted to give chase, only to realize that the shadows had already begun to consume me. Story 29. I know he snuck into my room and I know he will do so again tonight, but this time I will be prepared. As I closed her diary in a panic, I felt the knife penetrate my neck. Story 30. My friend and I were in the girls' bathroom putting on makeup to match our pink outfits for the Barbie movie when suddenly my friend was thrown to the ground by something unseen. As a massive hole appeared in her blood-soaked chest, the form of a pink-looking horror with 1 paw and 1 claw became visible, and then I realized it had turned its attention to me. Story 31. You went to sweeten your drink up, I asked. Do people not know that melatonin looks like raw sugar? Story 32. I had always been told that hell was unbearably hot. Why am I shaking from the cold? Story 33. After months of yelling at our dog and insulting us, our neighbors finally calmed down and became friendly once again. It's only when I saw our dog shaking and throwing up that I realized why they became so friendly all of a sudden. Story 34. They boiled the other prisoner in a barrel of acid until he was nothing but a bloody broth. I thought I was the lucky one until I saw what was on the menu the next day: broth. Story 35. Well, I did it. I beat the devil out of him. I might be spending the rest of my life in prison, but at least my baby's soul is safe. Story 36. I remember that day so well. I should have known that something was wrong when all of the passengers on the plane looked like mannequins. Story 37. I cut my arm off after I got bit to prevent the spread of infection. Unfortunately, now I'm bleeding out. Story 38. DEC 23. The judge stated that my sentence would double for every burn victim I maimed. I knew from the beginning that it would only have a practical significance for the first 5 or 6. Story 39. I was disappointed that I had missed out on meeting the content creator I admired so much at the convention. Months later, I found out what he could have done and had already done to female fans like me. Story 40. I jumped in the puddle before the tour guide could stop me. Shock set in as I sank deeper and deeper into the freezing water. Story 41. I saw the McDonald's employee. He was in my burger. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 42. After being dead for a minute I was brought back to life. I know now that the white light is not meant for us. Story 43. I have finally managed to create a speaking intelligent chimera. Oh how I miss my dog and daughter. Story 44. The creaking rusted floor gave way, plunging us into the foul-smelling murky sewage of the suffocating septic tank. As my vision darkened, I saw my family succumb to the asphyxiating toxic fumes of this putrid metallic tomb. Story 45. Several people in my town were attacked and killed by a mad dog last night, so obviously I was alarmed when I came downstairs to a broken window and large paw prints everywhere. But most alarming of all was the fact the tracks seemed to lead out the broken window instead of in, and I don't own any dogs. Story 46. I installed that new Pokemon sleeping app and I've finally got a good sleeping schedule down. But now I realize my stalker's voice was no longer just in my mind. Story 47. As the rope tightens around my neck and my vision blurs, I wonder if God forgives suicide. But then I take a last look at the remains of my daughter, and I think he wouldn't forgive me anyway. Story 48. I managed to escape the hellhole of a place that people nowadays would call a cult. In my desperation, I snagged a quick sip of juice on my way out, knowing it was my last taste of sustenance for a while. Story 49. After a little nap I decided to check on my baby. I was confused to find only a pan full of batter in the crib. Story 50. Bananas contain potassium. Before I exploded, I realized I shouldn't have drank water after eating that fruit bowl. Story 51. Recognizing the one-time tenant, I finally made the connection of the recent murder victims as having previously been residents of my neighborhood at one time or another. Plotting their former homes on a map created an arrow pointing to the house directly next to mine, whose owner was coming over for dinner in the next 5 minutes. Story 52. The patient slept in the bed for the very last time. To this day, he never closed his eyes. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 53. DEC23 question for this subreddit: why does this tag appear in some of the titles? DEC23 and why does it appear double in every post I made, and even in the things I said? Story 54. Oh my god, what did you do to your teeth? Sigh, they were taking up too much room, mom. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.